On your MTN statewide news on this Tuesday, I'm Andrea Lutz. The Bear Creek fire near Dillon continues to grow, already burning more than 7,000 acres, and it's only 10% contained. Officials expect it to be another active day on the fire, and there's another fire weather watch in place. Nearly 450 firefighters are working to put out the flames, which were sparked by lightning. Crews don't expect to have the fire under control, though, until the end of September. The Crow Tribe is now in stage 1 fire restrictions. Burn permits will not be issued at this time. This also means campfires are prohibited except in grills, but gas stoves are okay. Smoking's not allowed outside vehicles, buildings, or recreation sites, and agriculture fires must have a written permit. Well, Governor Steve Bullock says the Montana Fire Fund is completely filled for the first time ever. The state's budget was overflowing and leaders were able to transfer almost $45 million to reach the $100 million plus cap. Bullock says the full fire fund allows for resilience in case we do approach a record-setting wildfire season like we had in 2017. We are shaping up to have another scorcher of a day, and Ed McIntosh is tracking all those temperatures across Montana. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, well, hot yesterday for sure, Andrea. In fact, we were talking yesterday at noon about the potential for breaking records, and some of those certainly came through. Billings by 1 degree, Stanford, Livingston, Sheridan, Wyoming, all with temperatures that broke records for the day. How about Great Falls at 99, broke a record that went back to 1919 for August 17th. More heat on the way over the course of the next few days, but we have different types of concerns now. Rather than breaking records, we're thinking more about still heat advisories, but the risk of wildfires will increase as we add a little wind and the threat of some thunderstorms that could create lightning and wind. We'll talk more about that coming up.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi called representatives back to Washington to vote on a bill that would fund the Postal Service. Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte says he'll be there when the House reconvenes on Saturday. The Republican said he hopes the Speaker will work with his party on a bipartisan solution to avoid delays. In the Senate, Montana Democrat John Tester says he wants to question the Postmaster General about the funding.
And quite frankly, I don't know if the Postmaster General even wanted it. I don't even think he cares. And that's why I think it's important to get him in front of committees of Congress. And let's hear his side of the story. Let's find out what's going on. And then let's make the improvements that we need to make in Congress to support the Postal Service.
All right, this afternoon, there are 2 new COVID-19 related deaths in Montana being reported in Cascade and Roosevelt counties, this bringing the state's total number of deaths to 84. Also today, Montana adding an additional 57 new COVID-19 cases across the state. The total number of cases is close to 6,000 with over 4,000 recoveries. Family members of a Great Falls man who died from COVID-19 complications and wanted to donate his body to research say now they're left without answers.
2020 just sounded like one of those good luck years. As it turned out, it hasn't been good luck for anybody.
Earl Stuckey is the 4th person in Cascade County to pass away from the virus. His wife arranged for his body to be donated to the Montana Body Donation Program in Bozeman. But the department never received a request for the donors, leaving the family frustrated.
That was his final wish and gift of generosity to humanity for science to learn something from his body, and that was denied.
Family members say they're now left to grieve without the closure that Carl would have wanted. Face masks are required at all Montana K through 12 schools now in counties with 4 or more active cases of COVID-19. But are there enough smaller size masks to fit younger students? That really is the question. And in Cascade County, the health department says they are fielding questions about masks for students. Health officers expect the state's Joint Information Center to address those questions in the coming days. As for where you can find smaller masks, the Great Falls Public School District says they do have some available. Democrats continue to process and nominate Joe Biden in the first virtual political convention this year. And looking to tonight, Democrats are calling rising stars as keynote speakers. Skylar Henry has more from Capitol Hill.
The virtual Democratic convention kicked off with a mixture of live and tape speeches. Former First Lady Michelle Obama capped off night one, taking direct aim at President Trump.
He is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
It is what it is, referenced the president's response when recently asked about the high number of daily U.S. deaths from the coronavirus. Senator Bernie Sanders also attacked the president's COVID response.
Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Trump golfs.
Democrats held a virtual moment of silence for George Floyd, whose death sparked calls for police reform.
People of all races, all ages, all genders, all backgrounds, peacefully protesting in the name of love and unity. It's a fitting legacy for our brother, but George should be alive today.
Democrats traditionally use night two to showcase one of the party's rising stars. Tonight, they're switching it up with a convention keynote address that features 17 different speakers.
One of them will be former Georgia gubernatorial candidate and voting rights activist Stacey Abrams. We'll also hear from Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden.
What Jill is best at helping me do is figure out who the people around me would be most compatible with me. She knows me, I think, better than I know me.
Dr. Biden previewed her speech this morning, tweeting that she will deliver it from the classroom, where she used to teach. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Also tonight, a virtual roll call of states is set to officially nominate Joe Biden as the Democratic pick for president. The St. Louis couple who pointed guns at protesters will speak at the Republican National Convention next week. Patricia and Mark McCloskey drew national attention back in June after they were seen in a viral video brandishing guns outside of their home at a Black Lives Matter protest. They were charged with unlawful use of a weapon. President Donald Trump said it is absolutely absurd what is happening to the McCloskeys. Insurance rates for policies under the Affordable Care Act will remain steady in Montana. State Auditor Matt Rosendell announced policies sold by Blue Cross won't go up. Mountain Health Co-op will see a slight increase. Rosendell says Blue Cross and Mountain Health lowered their rates when he pressed them. However, industry officials say new claims influenced their final rates. About 50,000 Montanans use those policies. We do have more news ahead on this Tuesday on the New News, including this. We're going to take you to the first days of school at Carroll College. Things are going to be a little bit different because of the pandemic. We'll let you know how. But of course, first, Ed is up next with that statewide weather forecast.
Now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back to the New News. As we look into the Eastern Plains today, already hitting upper 80s to 90s, mid 90s. As we look around Glendive up towards Williston, North Dakota and Jordan, you're sitting at 95 degrees here as of midday. 70s and 80s towards the central and western portions of the state. You can see some cloudiness and a few showers that have been moving through around Butte and the Flathead Valley up towards Cut Bank here as of midday as well. Now, some of what you're seeing on Doppler radar not quite making the surface, but a bit of it is. The relative humidity numbers, especially into the Eastern Plains, tell the story there, where we're down into the teens and 20s once again today. And we'll likely see some single-digit relative humidity readings by later in the afternoon. So with the heat and the very dry air, we're back into a heat advisory again for most of the Eastern Plains of Montana, for anywhere from the Rocky Mountain front all the way over towards the Dakotas and also in northwest Montana. In addition to that, we also have fire weather concerns highlighted here in the pink shaded regions, virtually covering eastern Montana and northern Wyoming. Low humidity, the potential for wind, and then also those hot temperatures all combine to bring that fire potential up. So here's a look at the picture. As we talked about yesterday, we're starting to pick up more of this moisture that's shifting into western Montana, creating some of those clouds and a few of those showers. The problem is the air's still dry enough close to the surface that a lot of the rain evaporating before it reaches the surface, and that just produces a lot of wind. We'll also see in these red shaded areas, as we take our clock over the next 48 hours, an increase at least somewhat through especially southern Montana in the amount of smoke that's moving into the area. And that's from wildfires wildfires in California. So here's how things combine here in the next 48 hours. Looking for some potential thunderstorms that could create gusty winds and lightning in southwest Montana. That's the green shaded areas. Heat advisories and red flag warnings across much of the rest of the region, with very generally hot and dry conditions across the eastern plains. By tomorrow, that potential for thunderstorms starts to shift a bit more here in southern Montana. Again, they're going to be very hit and miss, but could create wildfire starts with the possibility of gusty winds around some thunderstorms. And then still very warm across the eastern plains, could still hit triple digits over the next few days. By the time we start shifting things into Thursday, we're still looking at the potential for some of those thunderstorms across the area. Again, we're generally looking at some pretty dry conditions there. So high temperatures today, 80s and 90s in central and western Montana, 90s to triple digits across the eastern plains where we have those fire weather concerns. And you can see those little cells starting to generate the potential for some showers and thunderstorms there. Overnight temperatures shifting down into the 50s, 60s, and the potential for thunderstorms will increase as we start getting into the next couple of days. So for western Montana, looking at temperatures 80s and then, 90s and then shifting down into the 80s as we get later on in the week. A few stray showers and thunderstorms in western Montana, a little more active around Great Falls and Helena, where we could see some of those thunderstorms pop here in the next couple of days. Again, limited moisture, but we will be watching the winds around some of those storms as well. Bozeman, Butte, looking at temperatures to downshift into the low 80s, especially in Butte. The overnight temperatures in the 50s. A few stray showers and thunderstorms Wednesday and Thursday, and then drier weather to follow. Glendive and Billings looking at temperatures the hottest today, and then downshifting closer to the weekend. There's a look at the weather. Back to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Ed. Carroll College opened back up for students in Helena with major announcements and adjustments, I should say, in response to COVID-19. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian tells us what changes are new this year.
On Monday morning, the Carroll College campus was full of activity again as classes resumed in person.
I can't describe how wonderful it feels. This morning when I got out of my car, the first thing that happened to me was I encountered one of our students who looked at me with this big smile and she said, "We did it! We're here in person."
As he has in previous years, Carroll President John Seck opened the semester by meeting with students and handing out muffins outside. But this year, the muffins were individually wrapped. Seck said leaders spent hundreds of hours planning so they could return to an in-person model.
People come here from all over the country and the world for the Carroll College experience. And we worked very hard last spring to replicate that experience in a virtual environment, but nothing replicates what it's like to be a student here on this campus, in this community.
Students said they're glad to be back at Carroll, even on a changed campus.
It feels really weird to see people again and socialize, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's definitely nice after kind of like a chaotic end of the last semester to be back in kind of like a semi-normal environment.
The fall semester started 10 days earlier than originally planned as a way to limit COVID-19 exposure. Leaders have taken many other steps to address potential spread.
Masks are required for the students and the faculty. We've reduced the class sizes by about 50%. We have everyone spaced out at least 6 feet. We have assigned seats.
Carroll is also paying for and encouraging all of its students to be tested for COVID when they arrive. On Monday, nursing students were set up to conduct tests. Seck said so far, all of the tests have come back negative.
I think it's definitely, we're doing like the right sort of things, taking the right steps to make sure that everyone's being safe.
The early start means all students will complete their classes by Thanksgiving. Leaders say they're doing all they can to make sure they finish the semester in person as well. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Carroll College opened back up, I should say, their conferences and other programs. Of course, they'll bringing those outside visitors to campus. They're also asking future students to register ahead of time if they do want to get a tour. All right, your latest Ag News is coming up next with Lane Nordlin.
The Montana Ag Network.
Welcome back for today's Farm and Ranch News. As USDA and Health and Human Services work to finalize the 2020 through 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans, the final comment period on the draft took place last week. Multiple agriculture groups submitted their recommendations to the agencies, including the National Potato Council.
We support the GDA's recommendations to increase vegetable consumption and include more plant-based options in the diet for all age groups.
The draft guidelines were released on July 15th, and the National Potato Council would like to see some changes to their recommendations.
NPC requests the agencies recommend potatoes as a complementary food across all life stages. We support the committee's emphasis on dietary patterns rather than individual foods, but methodological issues with the dietary pattern studies could lead to erroneous conclusions when making references to individual foods.
In a subsequent letter signed by the National Potato Council and state affiliates, the groups further called on the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee to recognize several deficiencies in the draft plan. Quarles also pressed USDA and HHS to correct various policy decisions made under the Obama administration that disregarded nutrition science in the pursuit of excluding white potatoes from several federal feeding programs, and also the misuse of the term starchy.
One challenge in these programs is that despite potato benefits, arbitrary vegetable color classification paired with the term starchy is confusing. We encourage the agencies to move away from this subjective metric of color classification and toward one based on nutrient content. If current vegetable classifications continue, we urge the inclusion of positive language around starchy vegetables to mitigate any negative connotations.
It is anticipated that the final dietary guidelines will be published before the end of the year. We'll be right back. Are still taking inventory of losses caused by the derecho storm a week ago. The violent thunderstorms traveled over 700 miles from Nebraska to Indiana. 70-mile-per-hour winds hit more than 10 million acres of corn and soybeans in Iowa alone, adding more difficulty to an already challenging year for farmers.
You pulled into home and, I mean, cattle barns are gone, the grain bins are gone. It's like tree on top of the house, and all our big mature trees are laying down on the ground. And
stuff we built for the last 40 years, just 20-25 minutes, gone.
Up to 43% of Iowa's corn and soybean crops suffered some level of damage from the storm, a big blow to the $10 billion agriculture industry that anchors Iowa's economy. And finally today, the White House has confirmed that President Donald Trump is withdrawing Wyoming native William Perry Pendley's nomination to lead the Bureau of Land Management. Pendley is the BLM's Deputy Director of Policy and Programs, and reports say that he will remain in that position. Environmental and conservation groups strongly oppose the nomination of Pendley, citing his work in the oil industry and his work as a property rights attorney, among other concerns. Now, it is rumored that Pendley would not have enough votes in the Senate for a full confirmation. That's today's Farm and Ranch News.
And thanks, Lane, for that. I know we're talking about hot temperatures, but seeing some of that video from that storm, that's really intense.
It really is. And we're not looking at that kind of intensity, but we are looking at an increasing chance of thunderstorms that will create wind. That's the story today in the green shaded areas of southwest Montana. It's really all about the hot and dry conditions across the eastern plains. As we get into the next couple of days, we'll be looking at temperatures overall to be in the 90s, 80s will become a little more of a regular thing for you in western Montana over the next several days. Great Falls, Helena also looking at temperatures trying to back off a little bit, but still staying at or warmer than seasonal averages. A chance of a shower or thunderstorm pops up here and there through Thursday across most of Montana and northern Wyoming. Looking at those overnight temperatures as cool as the 40s around Butte by the time we get closer to the weekend. But the heat sticks around, especially in the eastern plains, right on through the weekend.
All right. Hopefully everyone stays cool out there and have a great day.